Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Danielle, aka Stitcherista, here on YouTube. And before I do my intro, Sandra, one of my online friends, bought me another candle from my wish list. This is those crackling candles. It smells really, really good. Okay, and the reason why I did that before I did my intro is I recorded this diamond painting session yesterday, and this is a voiceover. So this is another diamond paint with me while I continue working on Treasure Studios art Cherry Blossom by Lizzie Falcon, and it will be a true crime story time, but we are going to chat for a minute first. So I had off work yesterday. I have off today. Not complaining because that 50-day arbitration we have coming up is, oh man, I'm trying to have a positive attitude towards it, that whatever's going to happen is meant to happen. I'll admit I'm a little scared. I'm just scared of us being so tired and it being long days. That's what I'm really afraid of. It's going to be some good money though. Anyway, so yesterday, I diamond painted past the recording of this. I actually finished this section yesterday. I diamond painted for a few hours. I watched an entire Lifetime movie, which was called, I want to say, Murder on Maple Drive. It was actually pretty good. I mean, Lifetime movies are somewhat predictable, but I still need to watch last week's American Horror Stories. And Jill also had messaged me about Hulu has a show called Fantasy Island. If you watch the movie that was out by Blumhouse Productions or Blumhouse something, it's based like that, where characters come to this island and they play out their fantasy, but it doesn't always turn out like they think, right? So I'm definitely going to be watching that show. Maybe I'll watch that today when I'm diamond painting or stitching or something. So I find it easier. Well, I don't want to say easier because it's like double recording, but I find it nicer to do the recording of the diamond painting and then do the voiceover for the true crime, because I can focus on the story better than I can when I'm diamond painting, and you actually see me getting something done, whether it's diamond painting or stitching. And I stitch every night, so I probably just need to start recording that because I would have something every single day. So I'm definitely going to be diamond painting today at some point, and I will record it. I'm going to try to record probably a couple segments and then just have to do the true crime story in the morning, because it's easier, obviously, when I'm not working, but when I am working, maybe a little bit difficult. So everyone might not be voiceover, but okay. Anyway, yeah, this section looks really good. I mean, you can see I still have quite a bit to do. I did a lot of diamond painting yesterday when I really, really think about it. So in the next diamond painting segment, my next true crime story with it, you'll see that section completed, and I'm moving on to the next section. Okay. But yeah, yesterday wound up being a good day. I ran errands. Like I said, worked on my diamond painting. This week, I am not going to lose any weight. I would be really shocked if I did. I have been eating things that have been necessarily higher carb. I've had a little bit, I don't want to say trouble, and I'm not abandoning the plan by any stretch of the imagination. I still want to continue to lose weight, but it's just this week, we went to a party on Saturday. I had spaghetti last night. Now, I had a smaller portion than I usually have. But yeah, it's like I miss that kind of stuff, So, yeah, I don't know. But I know I stepped on the scale today, and I'm not going to lose any weight this week. Tomorrow's weigh-in day, but I would be very, very surprised. But who knows? Okay, so today's story is Deborah Green. So if ever there was anyone who personified the American dream, it was Deborah Green. Deborah Jones. It was Deborah Jones, so she must get married. Born to a delivery truck driver and a homemaker on February 28, 1951, Deborah showed signs of her unusual intellect from early childhood. By the age of 3, she had already learned how to read and write, putting her well ahead of her peers when she started school. She would later master a second language and learn to play a musical instrument. She would become a National Merit Scholar, and when she graduated, she was valedictorian of her high school class. So all great things. So you wonder, where the hell does it go wrong? So Deborah's early life was one of near unbroken success. Yeah, I mean, the picture they have here, she looks pretty severe. So obviously something happens, right? And then success showed no sign of waning when Deborah entered the University of Illinois in the fall of 1969. Her major was chemistry, as with everything else, she excelled at it, graduating in 1972. And that is not an easy major at all. Her intention had been to pursue a career as a chemical engineer. But with diploma in hand and a seemingly promising future ahead of her, Deborah made a fateful decision. She decided that her career prospects as an engineer would be limited and that a vocation in medicine offered better opportunities. So soon after, she registered at the University of Kansas School of Medicine, remaining there until graduation in 1975. Her specialty was emergency medicine, and she was quickly snapped up by the Truman Medical Center to work in its emergency room. By then, Deborah was already married, having wed her longtime boyfriend, Deborah Green, while studying at the University of Kansas, and life should have been perfect. But already Deborah was having misgivings about her chosen career path. The very things that made her a talented engineer made her a poor emergency doctor. Oh boy. She enjoyed sifting through reams of data to solve complex problems. In the pressure cooker environment of the ER, where decisions had to be made on the fly and carried life and death implications, she faltered. She became short-tempered with colleagues and patients, and that irritability often carried over into her home life, and as a result, she and Dwayne divorced in 1978. She said they had little in common, and he said she was cold and uncaring. As I take a sip of coffee. And a little side note. So I have been using the powder collagen by Vital Proteins that I got at Costco. And you do 2 scoops. I've been putting a scoop in, I've been having 2 cups of coffee a day and putting a scoop in each. This morning I discovered it's better to brew the coffee and then put the powder in. The powder dissolves very, very well if you put it in afterwards. I was putting it in before and then brewing the coffee over it, and it was clumping. It perfectly disintegrates and dissolves when you put it in afterwards. So just a little side note. And I get the unflavored powder because I tried the flavored ones, and it's just, there's trying to sweeten it with stuff, and it just tastes too chemically and nasty. Okay, so those who had known Deborah up to that point described her as a supremely confident woman, but that confidence had been built on years of continuous success, and with the failure of her marriage and a faltering career, the first cracks were beginning to appear. Deborah tried to arrest those setbacks by switching from emergency medicine to oncology, but she found that the high death rate among her cancer patients upset her emotionally. Yeah, that's not easy to deal with. There was at least some respite on the relationship front. Deborah had begun dating Michael Farrar, a final year medical student who was 4 years her junior. And attracted by Deborah's sharp intellect and seemingly boundless energy, Michael was nonetheless concerned about her explosive and unpredictable temper. He put it down to the stresses of her job. Wow, this story is really long. Okay. The couple was married on May 26, 1979. For some reason, Deborah opted to continue using her previously married name, Green. It's a pain in the ass to change your name if you are a woman and you've ever been married. Oh my God. Shortly after the wedding, Michael accepted a residency at the University of Cincinnati, and the couple moved to Ohio, where Deborah found work at Jewish Hospital back in the ER. By the early 1980s, they were both settled in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Deborah by now was showing increasing signs of instability, mostly manifested in her growing hypochondria. Nice. She began suffering from migraines, muscular pains, and insomnia, and started abusing prescription medications. Jesus, that's not going to be a good combination. But despite this, she became pregnant with her first child. Timothy was born on January 20th, 1982. So Deborah initially appeared delighted at the new arrival. But within 6 weeks, she apparently became bored with the idea and decided to go back to work. Hiring a nanny to look after Timothy, she registered for a course in hematology at the University of Cincinnati, and 2 years later, a second child, Kate, was born. And again, Deborah was back at her studies within 6 weeks. Some people just aren't equipped for parenthood, I'm guessing. But the former Golden Girl and academic colossus was about to suffer yet another blow to her ego. Plagued by headaches and increasingly reliant on medication to help her cope, she failed her exams. Oh no. In the meanwhile, Michael's career was flourishing. He was offered a position in Kansas City, Missouri, and the family relocated there. Deborah, in the unfamiliar role of no longer being the family's main breadwinner, soon found work at a medical practice. But her offhanded manner towards her patients caused friction with the other doctors, and she was not offered a hoped-for partnership. So, angry and humiliated, she set up her own practice. Then, just as the business was beginning to gain traction, she became pregnant with her third child, Kelly, born on December 13th, 1988. Deborah again took only 6 weeks maternity leave before returning to work. She was determined to get her practice up and running again, if only to restore her waning self-confidence. But her short time away had been a mortal blow to her fledgling business. Patient numbers had dropped off significantly and would never recover, so reluctantly, Deborah was forced to close the practice. And disgusted, she decided to abandon her medical career altogether and become a stay-at-home mom. That has to be tough. I mean, not that I'm defending whatever is going to happen that she does, but that had to be very, very difficult. So by now she was 50 pounds overweight and suffering near constant back pain. She often appeared intoxicated with slurred speech and unsteadiness due to her over-reliance on sedatives, and when confronted by Michael, she agreed to stop self-medicating or at least to cut back, and for a while she seemed to do just that. So all of her children were all active outside of the home. Timothy played soccer and ice hockey, while Kate was a promising ballerina who was dancing with the Missouri State Ballet by the age of 10. And while Mike worked long hours at his medical practice, Deborah could be found transporting her children to and from their various extracurricular activities. Some regarded her as a good mom who doted on her kids. Others felt that she pushed her children too hard and publicly criticized them if they didn't live up to her standards. So inside the home, the situation was even more fractious. It says fractious. It was troublesome. Deborah and Mike were constantly at each other's throats. He accused her of being a poor housekeeper, which she was because the house was always a mess. She never cooked, sustaining herself and her children on an unhealthy diet of takeaway meals. He also blamed her for turning the children against him, which was also true. Deborah fought back by accusing him of having affairs. Inevitably, all of this accusation and counter-accusation led to a breakdown of the marriage, and in January of 1994, Mike asked for a divorce, triggering a furious response from Deborah. She attacked him physically, screaming and throwing objects. The next day, he moved out of the family home. The couple attempted a reconciliation 4 months later, but it was clear that it wasn't going to work, so Mike soon moved back into an apartment. A short while later, a fire broke out at the family home, rendering it uninhabitable and the family effectively homeless. So this forced Mike into a situation again where he had to cohabitate with Deborah, first at his apartment, then in a home that he purchased for the family at Prairie Village. Yeah, I mean, you would kind of be between a rock and a hard place, right? That move appeared to bring about a change in Deborah's behavior. She pledged to change her ways, and for a while she did. She began cooking and cleaning for the family and appeared altogether more congenial. But of course, it couldn't last. In the summer of 1995, the family departed for a vacation in Peru, and on their return, Mike again broached the subject of divorce with Deborah. She responded as she had before, violently and hysterically. So an uneasy truce now ensued. Mike had since become involved in a relationship with another woman, but he refused to move out and leave his children in Deborah's care. She had begun drinking heavily while continuing to abuse prescription drugs. Despite her inebriated state, she still insisted on driving the children to after-school activities. In the evenings, she would drink herself to the point of unconsciousness. Oh, God. And she was an abusive drunk, staggering around the apartment and aiming foul-mouthed rants at her husband and children. That was my stepfather, too. He would cross a line where he would be really mean and nasty. And then he wouldn't remember the next day what he had done or said, or at least that's what he said. Yet, despite Deborah's unpredictable behavior, despite her colorful language and explosive outbursts, Mike was certain of one thing. He was certain that Deborah would never deliberately harm the children. God, let's pray she doesn't. One day, while Mike was sitting in front of the TV, Deborah brought him a sandwich. This was unusual, but Mike had become accustomed to his wife's unpredictable behavior. He was glad anyway of a temporary truce, so he thanked her and bit into the sandwich. It tasted slightly bitter. Oh, Jesus. Poison? Really, Deborah? Later that night, Mike began to feel nauseous and only just made it to the bathroom in time to throw up into the bowl. Soon he was overcome by vomiting, diarrhea, and dizziness, and that same evening, he was rushed to the hospital where he would spend a week recovering. Doctors believed he might have picked up a bug in Peru, but by the time he was discharged, he appeared to have recovered fully. That was until he consumed another meal prepared by Deborah. Lordy. Then his symptoms returned with a vengeance, and soon he was back in the hospital again. So, Mike's friends were convinced that Deborah was trying to kill him, but he refused to believe she would do such a thing. He was, however, curious enough to search her handbag while she was out. There he found a sachet of castor beans from which the deadly poison ricin is derived. When he confronted Deborah with the evidence, she said that she had bought the beans in order to kill herself, that she would rather die than lose him to another woman, and for Mike it was the last straw. That same evening, he moved out, this time for good. On Monday, October 23rd, 1995, Mike spent the afternoon with his children before returning them to the family home at Prairie Village. He found Deborah in a state of inebriation and left quickly before she could start an argument. Later that evening, he received several drunken and abusive calls from Deborah. Eventually, he went to bed only to be woken in the early morning hours of October 24th and told that his family home was on fire. What the fuck? He immediately dressed and rushed to the scene. So the story would later emerge that Deborah had woken a neighbor just after midnight to say that her house was on fire. She appeared dazed, divorced from the seriousness of the situation, and the neighbor immediately called 911. When the first firefighters arrived on the scene at around 12:27, they found Deborah and her middle daughter, 10-year-old Kate, standing outside the burning house. Kate begged firefighters to help her brother and sister, 6-year-old Kelly and 13-year-old Timothy, who were still trapped inside. Deborah, however, says nothing. Witnesses later reported that she appeared very calm and very cool. Really? The fire was by now raging, and despite their efforts, firefighters were unable to enter the home. By the time they brought the blaze under control, the house was almost entirely destroyed. The bodies of Tim and Kelly were not recovered until the next morning. Kelly had died in her bed, most likely of smoke inhalation. Tim's body was found on the ground floor near the kitchen. He had died in the upstairs corridor while trying to escape the fire, and his body had subsequently fallen through the collapsed upper floor. It was severely burned with the flesh below the knee entirely sealed away. Oh my God. Deborah and Mike, together with their surviving daughter Kate, were taken to the Prairie Village police station for questioning. According to Deborah's version of events, she had heard the fire alarm go off, but had assumed that it had malfunctioned. Why would you assume that? If my fire alarm goes off in my house, I'm looking around first before assuming it malfunctions. Just saying. While trying to turn it off, she had smelled smoke. She then made her way out of the house through the back door and had run to the neighbors for help. Why wouldn't you get your fucking kids outside first before you're running to the neighbors for help? When she returned, she'd found the house ablaze and her daughter Kate standing on the front lawn. Her husband had by then arrived and had confronted her and asked where the children were. Deborah made no reply but had started crying because she knew that Tim and Kelly were trapped inside. Detectives were immediately struck by Deborah's story. For a mother who had just lost 2 of her 3 children, she seemed remarkably unemotional. Indeed, she came across as chatty, almost cheerful. The fuck? Although, you cannot predict how someone is going to react in times of extreme trauma. Everyone processes those kinds of things differently, but I'm imagining, and I have a short little story here, and I think I have time to tell it. When I was a kid, we lived in a neighborhood that had a lot of houses. And there were cars parked on either side of the street. We would always play in the street, but then when a car was coming, we would move, right? I remember I was at a friend's house and I came home and I see all these cop cars and fire engines and stuff on the road, like the main road. And my stepfather at that time was over there. And when he came home, he said this boy had ridden out from behind a parked car on a big wheel. And a car was coming and he didn't see the car and the car didn't see him and ran him over and killed him. Now, the mom of the boy, comes out of the house, and I don't know if she was hysterical at first, but she came out like nothing. Like all of a sudden her demeanor changed and she was talking with people and laughing. And it was like she couldn't process what had just happened, that her child was dead. And so I think your brain sometimes protects you in that way from things like that. Yeah, I'll never, ever forget that because I want to say I was only like in 6th grade. Yeah, young, like it was awful. So, where am I? Okay. Detectives were immediately struck by Deborah's story because for a mother who had just lost 2 of her 3 children, she seemed remarkably unemotional, chatty, cheerful. She also seemed to have no problem referring to her children in the past tense and did not once refer to them by name, using instead their ages. Also, investigators wanted to know why she had fled the fire, leaving her children inside the burning house. That's what I said. Why don't you get your fucking kids out first before you go to a neighbor's house? You would be like, immediately you would be trying to get your kids out. Deborah couldn't provide an answer, but Kate could. She said that her mother had instructed Timothy to stay in his room. No, she did not. What the fuck, Deborah? Based on Deborah's account and the testimony of Mike and Kate, the police began to suspect that the fire had been deliberately set. That view was confirmed when the Eastern Kansas Multi-Agency Task Force carried out an arson investigation on the ruined house on October 24th. Task Force officers discovered clear evidence that an accelerant had been used to start the fire. Their conclusion was that between 3 and 10 gallons of flammable liquid had been poured on the carpets of the ground and second floors and then set alight. Jesus! Only one person appeared to have had both the means and the opportunity to carry out the attack. Why, though? Why did she do it? Because people that normally, kill their kids, they've taken out an insurance policy. I mean, do you guys remember, although it's not on my channel anymore, the story of the guy, the Halloween candy killer? He had poisoned pixie sticks with cyanide and given it to his kid because he had taken out an insurance policy. He was in debt. Yeah. So Deborah was arrested and charged with arson and 2 counts of murder on November 22nd, 1995. She initially pleaded not guilty, but later admitted that she had started the fire while her judgment was impaired due to alcohol consumption. But again, why did she do it? She entered a plea of no contest at her trial and was sentenced to 2 terms of 40 years in prison. She will be over 80 by the time she becomes eligible for parole, and she's not going to be getting out, I would doubt. So was she tired of being a parent? I mean, I don't get it. I never felt like I wanted to be a mother. I've never had children of my own, but I can't imagine if I would have had a child. I can't fathom the parents that kill their children. I have such a hard time wrapping my brain around that. Yeah. Okay, we do need a positive affirmation. I have forgotten the book. So let me try to search online here for a positive affirmation. Why not? Right? Let's see. I might be able to find one just right online that I can read. Okay. Searching. Why is it taking 100 years? I hope you guys are all having a good day. Come on. What is happening here? Okay. So here's a positive affirmation to start your day. This is something that you could do every single day. This is something I might print out, no lie. You say to yourself, I will be present in every moment. Easier said than done. I am smart. I am kind. I am brave. I am beautiful. Today is a great day. You know, you have to kind of tell yourself that kind of stuff. You do. I think it's very easy to get bogged down in the mundane details of every day. And I am a firm believer in that what you project out, you attract. Meaning if you project out positivity, love, you're going to attract those things to yourself. Because have you ever really been having a bad day and it seems like every single thing is irritating and annoying? It's because you're attracting that to yourself. I am a firm believer in that. So, I hope you enjoyed this story. Not that it was enjoyable, but you know what I mean. And seeing me actually get some of this diamond painting done, I am so anxious to get this one done and move on to Maleficent. I really, I still have like that row and then the next row though to do. So, yeah, I don't know when I'll have this one done, but I hope you guys all have a great Wednesday. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.